emulation are two things that I've noticed have really grown in popularity pretty much exponentially over almost anything else in the past few months I've been on YouTube. I do feel like a lot of people are kind of misled with color grading, that it is extremely hard and that only a few people can do it because it's so challenging and that it's going to take hours upon hours to grade one clip. And I simply just don't believe that's true. While I will say color grading is not the easiest thing on earth and it will take a lot of learning curve to really get honed in and figure out the tools and how everything works in general, I don't feel like it's something that's impossible, and I feel like almost any filmmaker really can get a good grasp of this. I have seen a lot of videos of people making reviews and testing Dehancer emulation and really showing how powerful it really is inside DaVinci, and I feel like I just wanted to share my experience with Dehancer and give you my honest review. Let's go ahead and hop in and color grade some clips. Before I begin this video, I do want to preference that you do kind of need a pretty decent computer to run Dehancer how it's supposed to run. So I would recommend having at least an M series Mac or at least a pretty modern-ish computer, Windows, Mac. It really doesn't matter. I just wouldn't recommend going to this with a Chromebook. You're probably not going to have a fun time. I'm not exactly a pro colorist, so I'm not going to use all the same lingo and terminology that colorists use. I'm pretty much going to try to break this down as simple as I possibly can. So starting off, you'll scroll down to your effects page and drag Dehancer over, and you will choose which camera you shot this with, and you'll put in the exact settings that you shot everything in. So I wouldn't mess with these till the very end. These are pretty major adjustments to your image and they really can take a major effect and kind of make your picture look pretty funky. So I really wouldn't recommend messing with this till the very end. Right here is your film profile, so you can choose between those 63 different film profiles that they offer. I think for this one I'm going to stick with Kodak Vision 3 250. I really like the look of this. You can push and pull your film, which will affect the colors and just give it a nice tonal adjustment. I'm going to go ahead and pull back. Film Developer is where I would really recommend messing with a lot of stuff to begin with. Right here is where you get your contrast and your gamma correction. So as you can see, gamma correction is pretty major. It does make a really big difference in the highlights in the background and stuff being blown out, especially when you're using a Pro Mist filter. So I recommend dragging that down a little bit if you're experiencing a little bit blown out backgrounds. Also going to add a little bit of color into here. Film compression will be if you're going for a film emulation look. So this will really adjust that film emulation look. With impact, you can save your highlights up here, as you can see. And you can also adjust the white point, so if you do want something a little more not warm, you can go over there. You also have adjustment to your tonal ranges, so you can get nice and dialed in on how much tone you do want on those background images and the stuff in the foreground. So black point is one of the major things a lot of beginning filmmakers really don't use, and I feel like this is what really sets people apart in color grading. So I would recommend setting your black point so you do get those nice rich blacks in your image and everything is just nice and, you know, has a good black point to it. You don't want to go too crazy because it can just turn to a mess, so I really would recommend going about somewhere in here. I wouldn't go too crazy because you can adjust up here with the exposure comp in the very end. So I wouldn't recommend going too low, but just make sure your blacks are pretty rich. And right here you can adjust how much you want that white point or pretty much the bloom of the image to show. So for this one I feel like I'm gonna be alright here. So with the print profile, this is what really gives you that film emulation look, so you don't have that nice digital imaging that comes with the new cameras. You can kind of dirty that up and give it a more film camera look. So I usually stick to Fujifilm and Kodak print films. I have noticed the Fuji 3513 does give you a more pink green saturated look, whereas the Kodak 2383 gives you a little more warm look, a little more saturated. I kind of get Kodak Gold from this. And the Endura glossy paper, I'm really not sure about this, I'm not too familiar with it, but I have been able to pull out some images from it, and it just gives you a more deep, rich look to your image. So for this one, I think I'm going to go Kodak 2383. And you can also adjust everything right here to go with that print profile, and you also have an analog range limiter, so you can get those nice gray midtones that do come with film cameras sometimes. So right here you can adjust your exposure, kind of give it a nice darker look. Some tonal contrast, kind of bring that up a little bit. Color density, I'm not really too familiar with. I try not to mess with it too much. You do have the color head here, but I honestly go to the DaVinci Color Splice page, so I really don't use the color head much in Dehancer. The film grain, you have a lot of options in the film grain. You can go 65mm, 35, 16, or 8, and they have all these different ISOs you can choose from, so you can really dial in which kind of grain you want for your image. And you can also adjust the amount, so if you want it really grainy or just slightly grainy, you can do that. I'm going to go 35mm ISO 50 on this. You go about 36. You have halation and bloom right here, so you can adjust these and enable them pretty easy. So if you do want to get that nice film emulation look, it's not hard to find. Now there is a thing as too much halation and bloom, so I wouldn't recommend absolutely throttling both of them and really just having them at the forefront of the image. I recommend kind of having them as just some seasoning on the image. So I like to do the super 8mm halation. I guess it's technically wrong, but I do like the tones and the look that comes from this. And for the bloom, I usually leave it at 35mm. I have noticed that the 8mm is a little too bloomy for me, and the 16 is not much different than that, and the 65 I really don't notice it that much, so I really do like the 35, and I like to amplify it slightly. I like to go around 70ish%, and I feel like this is a pretty nice looking image already. So right here with the film damage, film breath, and gate weave, these will really give you that look that you are trying to go for if you want to get a film look. So with film damage, those will give you the speckles on the film and kind of give you that dirty look to your image. So I recommend leaving that about where it's at 0. I don't really mess with film breath too much. It can be kind of distracting, but that is an option. And you also have gate weave. Again, I really don't use gate weave, but it is an option for you if you want. Right here is the icing on the cake for Dehancer. I think this overscan feature is amazing, and I feel like this is a time saver and will really amplify the amount of stuff you can get done in a short amount of time. So you have a choice from all these different gates, and you can completely customize them, so you don't have to have these little bracket holes on the sides. You can have it as a clean frame. So I do like this right here. I feel like this is a nice looking image. The last thing I will adjust is the vignette. So here's the before and after, and I can say I do feel like this is a really nice looking image, and I don't get that cheesy, real, iPhone edited feeling whenever I look at this. I feel like this is a true film emulation software that can really amplify your color grading and your film emulation. Alright, so for my second clip, I had a job at a local high school where I filmed a football practice, and it was overcast weather, so it was really good lighting, but it was a really blown out sky for most of the shots, and some of them had some rainy clouds in it. So I was wanting to show my process on another clip and to really show you how I go about doing multiple clips at once. So this might be considered cheating, and this might be something that I wouldn't consider doing if you have two completely different instances like I do here. These aren't completely different, and I'm gonna have to do some editing, but if you do want to figure out how to really color grade and not restart every time you do a new clip, I just like to copy and paste, so Command C, Command V. And as you can see, not a perfect image by any means. It definitely needs some work, but as you can see, about 50 to 60% of the work is already done for me. If you take any kind of iPhone pictures and you do want to do some film emulation to kind of take off that digital nastiness of the photo, Dehancer makes an app where you can choose from all these same film emulation profiles, but just in a picture format, so similar to Lightroom. So you can film emulate photos within Dehancer and really get some amazing results. Here are some photos I took the other day, and I graded these within minutes, and I used Cinestill 800T as my profile. If you're a filmmaker just starting off and you really want to get into color grading and you do have DaVinci Resolve, I feel like not only will you be able to make some pretty stunning film emulation clips, you will also be able to color grade your clips and really learn the basics of color and how color works in video. I feel like being able to actually work your program nicely and to really use everything to its fullest potential will honestly make you a better colorist, and the fact that you can do that with Dehancer versus trying to learn a full node tree, I feel like that's pretty valuable.